Greetings. My name is Onyx Sol Bianco, and I'd like to perform a thought experiment. So, something that I have discerned as a pattern. The folks that it seems are aligned with the idea of a Trump presidency also tend to be the folks who I hear expressing certain theories which can be reduced down to the idea that there's some force out there, there's some them out there who is controlling the weather, or who is controlling all of the things that are going on, or there's some malevolent force that's pulling the strings on all of humanity and making it so that there's evil. There's just a host of theories that can be reduced down to some external force out there, whether we attribute that external force to the government, to aliens, whatever. Some external force out there is controlling all of the things and making it so that there's this sort of hell on earth realm, right? And these people also, for whatever reason, believe that Donald Trump is the savior out of that construct. So I want to perform a thought experiment, because the thing that really throws me on this one, okay, is that there are actually a lot of really genuinely loving, otherwise heart-centered people. Heart-centered in the sense that I can see that they're caring, or they're kind, decent human beings, but for whatever reason, because they have this mentality of this external force out there, it somehow aligns them with the Trump presidency. I want to express why I think this is, but first let's perform the thought experiment. Let's say that there is some alien race or some small group of elites or whatever controlling all of the things and making it so that life is harder for the average human being in this plane at this time. I think to myself, even if that were the case, which I'm not saying I think it is the case or that it isn't the case. I will say, however, that I do believe and feel and experience, as someone who is primarily clairaudient and clairsentient, someone that channels music and has always received energetic downloads. There is a vibration to truth. Truth has a vibration. Okay? The vibration of truth, even if it's a difficult truth, the vibration of truth feels harmonious in the body. Because even if it's a difficult truth, there is some part of being that releases into, yes, this is true. It might suck, but it's true. Some part of being releases into truth. The vibration of distruth, the vibration of untruth, is dissonant. It feels like distortion waves. It's like the best way that I could think to explain it is, you know, when you're watching one of these movies where there's like maybe there's an invasion, or maybe there's like a freaking it's so hard to put words to sound sometimes. Oh my god. Maybe there's like an invasion, or maybe there's like some sort of natural disaster or something. But I think it's more so like anyway, it sounds like these waves, like this. And there's a kind of eerie quality to it. It's very unsettling. By my perception, the way that I've always experienced the vibrational quality of the words, the expression of the figure of Donald Trump has always been in this way. There's always been this And not in a disrupting things for the greater good kind of way, because there is such a thing as being a positive disruptor. No, it's literally the very essence of dark and distorted and chaotic energy just emanating out of this being. Okay, I digress. We're in this thought experiment. We're considering a reality in which it is in fact true that there's some they out there that's controlling all of this stuff and things. Okay. Now, oh yeah, the reason why I went on that digression is because I was saying I don't believe or disbelieve in the they. I just, by my perception, there's no truth resonating in that idea. And I'll explain why after. Okay, so now let's say that's the case. I still have before me these two choices. Not only that, not only do I still have before me these two choices, I myself am a free and sovereign being. I have my own will. I have my own drive. I have my own mission. I have my own soul purpose. I have my own spiritual guidance. I have my own desires. I literally wouldn't be doing any single freaking thing differently right now if this were in fact a truth. Which is to say, this entire month I have poured myself into, with 200% effort, all of my creative endeavors, as I've done honestly for the majority of my life. Because I know that that is what I must do. Not only that, but even if there were some they out there, I would still be looking at the two choices before me and tuning into what it is that I'm sensing, hearing, feeling, experiencing relative to both. I would still be observing the patterns of behavior of both. Not only that, but look, as someone who has taught English as a language, who has studied linguistics and language, this is what my degree is in. This is what I have done in countries all over the world. And for people from countries all over the world, it's been a very, very, very critical analysis of language. The key to discerning a person's consciousness is through the language which they use. By my perception, this fact alone makes it so that this choice is a no-brainer. This is so freaking obvious. The thing of it is, okay, this is why I believe folks who are aligned with this idea of some malevolent, greater external force out there are also aligned with this idea of a Trump presidency. It's because at the end of the day, if we are still externalizing the evil out there, we haven't owned it in here. In the same way, if we are externalizing the savior out there, i.e. Trump will fix it and make it better, we haven't owned our own personal agency. This is what's been heartbreaking for me, is that this summer has been my first encounter with folks who also belong to what is known as the Rainbow Tribe. And this has been my exposure to folks falling into that faction of humanity through the gatherings known as the Rainbow Gatherings. And what's been really heartbreaking to me in this last month of life, as I've been encountering more of these folks in this area where folks like this tend to congregate, i.e. I've been living in Mount Shasta, which is a place that's a bit of a spiritual hub and definitely attracts its fair share of extraterrestrial and neurodivergent and etc. I'm not really sure what that rumbling noise is. That's also kind of similar to the sound that I was describing, by the way, but it doesn't have enough of the gravitas. Anyway, okay. Why I believe these folks are aligned with a Trump presidency. Okay, this is perfect. So the first Rainbow Gathering that I went to, the Rainbow Gathering that happened this year, this Rainbow Gathering, I thought we need to check to see if this was on. Okay, this Rainbow Gathering was the one that was disrupted by the authorities, in the sense that the first location was deemed inappropriate, but also, in other words, folks had to leave the first location and had to be relocated. And then in that second location, there was the presence of the forest rangers. This was a fascinating thing to have witnessed because, of course, folks belonging to this sort of faction of humanity, which is to say a faction of humanity that has a great big problem with the concept of authority, would be a match to the authority being present at the gathering itself. It's hysterical, you know? I mean, okay, I'm kind of taking the piss a little bit over here, but like, I literally heard, for example, like I encountered a full-on grown older woman, like an elder, telling me a story about how she literally, in feeling pissed off about the presence of the cops there, right, defaced some of the signs and stuff. Like literally, this was like bringing out the rebellious teenager even in elders, right? And I just kind of like felt this whole thing was hysterical, because at the end of the day, I know that I'm writing my story. I am my own authority. That doesn't mean that I think that I'm above the law. It just means that I know that I am the one that is manifesting any and all scenarios that I encounter. And this isn't to give myself either, again, this isn't to say that I think that I'm completely in control of everything. That's not what I'm saying at all. It's just that I know that the experience that I will have with any external authority is a direct mirror of my own relationship to my own inner authority. Period. This is truth. Those who believe in this external malevolent force are the same human beings who have a problem with any idea of an external authority figure. And ironically enough, because of Trump's messaging or the way in which he's posited himself as someone who's not like the other politicians, he's put forth this narrative which has caused people to believe that he is the disruptor of the established governmental structure, the established crew of elites who are pulling the strings or whatever. But the great irony is that beneath that messaging, all of his actual policies are so much more rooted in the control dynamics that these very people have an aversion to. And the reason why they're blind to it is because they're still in a space of aversion to it. Look, prior to the last 2 years, I would have been someone that said, fuck this whole system, burn the whole thing down, none of this stuff works, it's all bullshit, it's all nonsense, everyone's a freaking liar, it's all crap, let's all go live off the grid and freaking forget about all this crap. I would have been that person, 100%. But as I shared in one of these previous videos that I've made in this period, is that I then went through a 1 to 2 year phase of life within which, by necessity, I had to navigate and had to interact with the system and the structures that are already in place. And don't get me wrong, though there was a great amount of frustration that I felt, and though myself is someone who values efficiency and is always seeing and seeking to create ways to make things more efficient, though that part of me was freaking livid at times with how inefficient these things are. Oh my god. What stands, what's true at the end of the day relative to this is that even with that frustration, I still was able to have my needs met when I otherwise wouldn't have been able to do so for myself. In other words, when I needed help, when I needed support, these structures were there. And thus, because of this, there was that as part of it, but then the next part of it is this. When Kamala Harris stepped into the role of the presidential nominee, it was the first time that I ever experienced, really truly experienced, someone speaking to and for and of the themes that I care the most about and that I have worked my whole life in support of, with sincerity. And I'm gonna go into this in the next video that I know I'm gonna record today, so I'm gonna leave this here. Let's just make sure I've hit all the points that I want to hit. Yeah, okay, at the end of the day, I don't think that I don't think it's a useful narrative. This idea of the thought experiment, for me, it's to illustrate the fact that whether or not there's some external malevolent force, I don't think it's useful as a story. At the end of the day, we are all voting for the reality which we want to live in. We are all shaping the reality that we live in with the stories that we tell ourselves and others. To me, this is not a story that's even worth a single freaking breath. Because, again, whether there's an external negative force out there or not, I don't care. I'm literally gonna do what I feel is in my purpose to do. And frankly, that amount of determination and drive and commitment to what is right and what is just is what I see reflected in a figure like Kamala Harris, and why I admire her so greatly, and why I am fervently in support of her presidency. What I wish is that those who ascribe to these narratives, rather than seeking to prove the validity of the weather being controlled or not. Listen, just a note on this idea of the weather being controlled. We're talking about Mother Nature. To me, this is like just a textbook example of the degree to which humanity has divorced itself from Mother Nature herself. To think that the natural world is something that human beings are controlling, give me a break. I digress again. What I wish is that those who ascribe to these narratives, rather than, again, seeking to prove the validity of them, and rather than seeking to then solve for this problem with actually what is going to be a bigger problem, what I wish is that these folks would instead internalize, would create a healthier relationship to their inner darkness and their inner power, their inner authority, their inner light. That is the solution, truly, at the end of the day. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned.